when you're not answering your phone, I just feel like something gone wrong. And I hear you telling people your granny me's a rebel. What you saying, boy, granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, boy, granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, this was a snake in the sugar pan. Granny, boy, granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, you should know this sweet for so. Granny, boy, granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, long ago, granny, you were so. Granny, boy, granny, ay, ay, ay. Choker, Charlie. The girl was on she was dead. Granny said don't stay out too late. Didn't come home. Granny keep calling down she phone. So long as Granny calling, the girl not answering. But finally she come home. Granny say you're not answering your phone. And Granny start caroling, the girl started singing. Then she saying, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, this was a snake in the sugar pan. Granny, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, you should know these things sweet for soul. Granny, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, long ago, Granny, you were so. Granny, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. She says she going online. She going to have a good time. You see, when you're out there, Granny does be worried. And you know your Granny love you. My one and only do-do. Say don't worry with Granny. Granny like to quarrel. Then she saying, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, what up, man? Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, you should know these things sweet for soul. Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, ay, ay, ay. You're dressing to go online. Well, don't do like the next time. And when your Granny call you, you know what you have to do. And when you're not answering your phone, I just feel like something gone wrong. And I hear you telling people your Granny me's a rebel. What you saying, why, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, this was a snake in the sugar pan. Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, you should know these things sweet for soul. Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Granny, long ago, Granny, you were so. Granny, Granny, ay, ay, ay. Choker, Charlie. Don't whine so, girl, don't whine so, girl, don't whine so. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. Afraid your bumper spring go break.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry. Yes, it is, of course, the corridor transformation. And, of course, it's Carnival, so I thought I should be a bit carnivalish. And at the same time, of course, try to highlight some of the renditions, particularly of the less well-known, because I think it's important that we take over from those who would have gone before, stimulate and to make sure that the endurance of our not just the artists, but certainly the genre and the art form that we have developed, whether it's calypso, whether it's soca, whether it be soca, chutney, etc., etc. We will be, of course, highlighting some of these individuals who clearly have not yet made a name for themselves, but are budding. So I trust that you enjoyed this one at the beginning here, and of course we will do some at the ending as well. Listen to this.
Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. They say they want a taste, but you whine with so much bass. They want you to slow down. so they could hold on. Don't whine so, girl, don't whine so, don't whine so, girl, don't whine so. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and they'll go be real lady. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and they'll go be real lady. Girl, get up from the ground and come and take your crown. Girl, big up your chest. You know you are the best, and no one can contest. You way above the rest. Girl, get up from the ground and come and take your crown. Get up from the ground, girl, come and take your crown.
Some more chairs out, please. We have to thank all of you for coming out. We have a full house overflowing. Johnny's telling me we need a bigger space next time. The bigger space next time, Johnny, will be all of Trinidad and Tobago as we go to fight crime throughout the country. So can we put some chairs out if we have more? Some of you very kind gentlemen can help us. A fine gentleman, please help.
Yes, indeed, of course, we must highlight the issue is crime and criminality. Of course, whilst, of course, Dr. Rowley continues, of course, to wallow in his sorrow, let me repeat that, to wallow in his sorrow, having, of course, another disappointing, and disappointing by itself may well be an understatement. We will have to qualify that wallowing, and I say that wallowing to the extreme, because clearly the man's sourness, the man's curse knows no boundary. It's the first man I know every single thing he touches that is supposed to be major for Trinidad and Tobago turns to south, turns to sour, turns, of course,
pause for a cause
inimical.
to welcome all these gentlemen and ladies from the OWTU. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for joining us.
Kamala Prasad says on the floor.
That's it for
Let's
the
hear some of the
chairs.
contributions at that crime symposium
Well, I'm
or
sorry.
meeting, which of course is important.
Okay.
Having regard
Okay.
to the priority
Thank you all very much. Can
of
we
this
please
country
carry on with the program?
and what is required now.
Apparently, these criminals, when they go on a crime scene, they shoot off sometimes 70, 80 rounds to send fear to the public and to the police officers. You imagine an officer just involved in one of those dramas, on his way home, nothing to protect himself and his family, not even his neighbors. You tell me if that police officer could function properly. But I am saying, under the leadership of the great opposition leader, Mr. Kamala Prasad, that will change, and it will change shortly. Families have been raped. Their prized possession have been taken away. You can imagine Mr. Ramkisun, who was murdered recently. I am sure that his family is afraid to even stay in their own home. That is how far crime has reached in this country. And then you want to tell me, shut up when I talk about crime? I am not going to shut up. I am going to speak out on behalf of the people of this country.
Good night, everyone. My name is Vanessa Kusi. I am the wife of Rishi Ryan Nagasa, the late. I don't like to say late, but it's the late Rishi Ryan Nagasa. I'm standing here before you, still waiting for justice for my husband. The Paria tragedy. Next month will be 2 years since this accident happened, and we are still waiting for justice. I stand together with the 4 other families as we want justice for the 4 deceased divers and the lone survivor. February 25th, when this accident happened at Paria, neither LMCS or Paria officials had called me I got the news from a fisherman out at sea. When this news reached my home, the echoes of my screams were heard throughout my street. My house was filled in minutes. Myself and my family went to Paria. First, we saw the securities. We asked them if there were accidents that happened there, about maybe 3:30 or so, and they said no, there's no accident they know about. Now this there starts with a lie. A few minutes after, I saw an ambulance coming out from Paria. My uncle stopped him, the driver, and he asked about the incident that took place inside Paria and if the men are still in the pipeline. They told them they do not know because Paria officials, the immediate wives, to let them know this big tragedy happened in our country, and you never had a small little piece of, a heart to call the families of the deceased divers what is taking place. I have no respect for you all. The families of the 5 divers waited at the car park for news, day and night. Paria gave us nothing and was doing nothing to save these men. They, the Paria officials, never called any of the families, and we are still waiting for justice. Paria, you all are murderers, and we want this whole board to be fired because you cooperate with the deaths of our men. Our breadwinners taken away from us. The government called for the commission of inquiry. This had taken almost 16 million. What the families got? Nothing. They are laughing at us, saying we are weak, but I want them to know I'm going to fight for justice till the end. To the Prime Minister, the same way you came the next day and said our husbands are dead, and you tell the whole world our husbands, they are dead, and they were still alive days after. You need to come out the same way and meet and greet the family. We want justice. We want you and the Paria officials to come out and have meetings with us. As of this week, we are going to march in front of Paria as every day goes by, every Thursday as we meet. In other countries, Coast Guard fight to save lives. In our country, they pointed guns for the divers who were willing to save these men. I was there, and I can tell you, I am not lying. I was there from the beginning, and I can tell you all the people who were involved in this. And we need them for the government to remove the officials from Paria. And we want quick response. The report Mr. Lynch had given us, and I think we are all clever and we know exactly what it means. They are all murderers. He clearly says Paria officials had left these men to die. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All our presenters, please give them a round of applause as we thank them. And from those who came from the crowds, again, if you didn't get a chance to speak today, our team will take your numbers, we'll contact you. The gentleman from Tabaquite mentioned his MP, Anita Haynes. He says he has 21 recommendations. MP, can you work with him? Get them in writing for us, please. And any of you would like to bring forward any further suggestions, comments, we are willing and able. Our doors are open, our ears are open, our hearts are open to listen to you, to try to get our country working again. I want to thank the OWTU, and the Paria issue has been raised, you know. And there's something that really troubles me, and I would like to ask the government whether it is true that following upon the Commission of Inquiry report on the Paria divers, that during the period before the report was released to the public, but after the Prime Minister received the report, and in that report, the report was very abrasive to a person by the name of Mr. Piper. The OWT people know him. And another one renewed their contracts secretly during the period before the report was made public. And when the report became public, it was clear that Mr. Piper was found to be liable in certain ways for his actions at that accident site, that tragedy site. So that's something I think the government must answer us. Why did you renew the contracts of these two people? And who renewed the contracts? Was it Newman George and the Paria board? Was it the cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Because the cabinet had the report, you'll remember that. They got it since last year, but they delayed in laying the report and making it public. So I really would like answers to that question. It is a serious, serious question, that if people have been culpable in terms of doing their jobs, I think one of our speakers here said tonight, you hire somebody to do a job and they can't do the job, what do? Fire them. They don't want to renew their contracts for 2 more years. The Commission Inquiry found that the Paria was guilty of could be guilty of corporate manslaughter. What are they still doing sitting in those positions? Because they are the friends and the family of the Prime Minister and his government. I think they own townhouses together in Tobago, if I'm not mistaken. So the chairman, Newman George, and Prime Minister Rowley, and a few others, like a whole complex. What was it again? Remind me the name of it. That's right. Inez Gate. So a lot of the speakers, you put your finger on the pulse of things, that a injustice to one, it's an injustice to every single person, all. So let us continue to work together. That if you don't like what people are saying about you, the best thing you can do is to get out of here tomorrow morning. Just get out. Get out. You cannot buff people and tell them shut up because you have a different opinion. And you and Hines seem more concerned about Gary Griffith's underwear. Because that's what they came on the platform to speak about. Instead of telling us about plans and solutions for crime, you're buffing Mr. Johnny, you're talking about somebody, well, his name is Gary, but you're talking about his underwear, whatever it may be. It's the epidemic of crime in our country. So we will continue to speak. Go home safe, enjoy your carnival season, keep safe. God bless you all, and I thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Why that is happening, this is what Rowley is prepared to do, or prefer to do. Bloodletting, blood money, spending or have spent blood money in a vanity initiative that could only attract the venom and the disapprobation and the disrespect of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to say, it came with the approval of members of the cloth. Watch how they gather to feast as if they're looking to gourmandize on ill-gotten gains. Look at there. Look them as they assemble to do evil against the people with the people's money. Just imagine that. They're doing evil, rubbing it in their faces with the people's money. Look at them. So why is, of course, Kamala Prasad-Bisesa and the UNC and opposition are concerned about the burgeoning and the overwhelming and the proliferation of crime and criminality and looking for solutions. And it's not the first time that Kamala Prasad-Bisesa has taken the initiative as if she was Prime Minister. And indolent, incompetent, but look at them. With our money and the members of the clergy are roped and wrapped into that, what I consider to be a most despicable, a most horrendous, a most display of arrogance and contempt for the people. Look at them, and it's not the first time. We saw Dr. Rowley at a Baptist holiday exercise. It's clear that Manning must have slapped him, and then of course converted that exercise, that mockery, that bigotry of the identity, when that was converted into a soca song. And again they went to Diego Martin, the PNM, that deadly, and they of course sang "Somebody Touch Me, Somebody Touch Me," and you saw all the ministers in the front row as they continue of course to exhibit that what I consider to be barbaric tendency, and that of course disrespect, and that of course total and absolute Luciferian tendency, totally macabre and totally devilish. That is, and of course pretending to be reverent. I have no qualms in castigating the members of the cloth. I have no qualms in telling them that they have done wrong, and if it is they wanted to see the face of that which is greater than any one of us, that supreme being, they must of course correct that travesty that they have been lured to sanction. Let's go straight of course to the lines. Let's go straight to the lines.
We give you thanks,
Pleasant good night, welcome.
We thank you, Lord God, for all
Pleasant good night,
Hello?
welcome.
oh Lord,
Good night, welcome.
renew this
Good night to you.
building, oh Lord.
You know, last night I sat there looking at Keith Rowley and Stuart Young sitting amongst the U.S. delegation, literally begging for approval for a gas deal, right, on their personal interests. I don't think that deal has anything to do with the benefit Trinidadians. That deal probably has more to benefit Maduro, Stuart Young, and Keith Rowley. And after this man lambasted and abused the former U.S. ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, and literally broke sanctions between Venezuela and the U.S. by doing illegal trade with them. He also more sided with Iran and China, right? And that is the alley he has been leading our country down. He have the guts to go sit down amongst these people now to negotiate with them. This man have nothing about him. Nothing. It's so shameful that he represents us as a people and as a country. It's embarrassing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And early in the game, I want to tell you, go to the top of the class. Go to the top of the class. There can be no, or there's very little that anyone can add in terms of this man, macabre and conflicting, as well as, of course, his desultory and his to-in and fro-in position, as if the man is suffering from bipolarism, as if he is suffering from schizophrenia. But no, none of the above. He is a total criminal, we know that for sure, and that he is a sociopath, a recidivist sociopath, a multiple recidivist sociopath, and these kinds of underhand and of course bold-faced and in-your-face ablum situations, as if yesterday didn't happen, and he could sit there and then of course try to telegraph to us that somehow he's when little island such as St. Lucia Prime Minister was invited, the Jamaican Prime Minister was invited, the
God our Father, we lift
and
up before
another
you with
Caribbean
gratitude
prime minister was
those who in
invited.
their different
He,
capacities
Rowley, even when he was
serve the
sitting as
communities of this
chairman of
nation
CARICOM, was not
out of
invited. And
disgrace.
hear what he said. He said, our
center of
foreign policy
social
is not
service,
determined by a man
political
inviting
thought
us
and
to his
action,
home.
and
But that is
national
not all.
development.
To
Pray for
demonstrate
those
what
who
the last
safeguard
caller
public health,
has identified
services
so
of your people.
appropriately.
those who provide
Remember when he
care of
office
the young,
and he said he was in
care
his
for the
bathroom,
elderly and infirm,
suggesting that he was in his
those
bathroom,
who serve in local
and he got a
government,
call.
administer
And
the
of
law,
course, when he
and preserve the peace,
picked up the phone,
especially
the person on
in
the
this time
other
of high
end was
sensitivity
Donald Trump,
to crime,
suggesting to
violence,
us
and murder.
that somehow he has arrogated
Assist them,
unto
O God,
himself
in their
an
very
importance
duties
that doesn't
with your
exist.
divine
We know
purpose.
now for a fact.
And
Let's go
deepen
straight to the
within
line,
us
of course.
all the
Let's go
spirit
straight to the line.
of loving
Pleasant,
service
pleasant,
through Jesus
good
Christ,
night.
our Lord.
Welcome to the corridor.
And the blessing for the
Pleasant, good
young,
night. Welcome to the corridor. Yes.
Almighty God, by the
Yes.
radiance of your sons of
I think I noticed in Trinidadian,
corrupted by sin.
hypocrite in Trinidadian,
We humbly pray
from religion go right back,
to be your strong defense
Christianity,
against the attacks
all
of
of them,
enemies.
full of hypocrite.
And
Because they can't have an evil man like Rowley and they supporting
has
him.
been stained, defiled with,
You understand?
craft of
Then hypocrisy.
or by human malice.
Okay then.
May be
Yes,
purified
indeed.
and
Yes,
cleansed
indeed.
by
So
your
you have
abiding
endorsed.
grace,
You have,
time
of
going
course,
forward.
enhanced
That in this
what
case,
the first caller
purge
would have
from
said.
all
But again, I'm showing you the convoluted
restored and
and
sanctified
the
to the
what I
glory of
consider
your
to
holy
be,
name.
as the caller said, the hypocrisy of this man,
Jesus
and that
Christ,
his
our Lord, who lives
his
and reigns with you and the Holy
bipolarism
Spirit, one God,
and his
now
gravitation
and forever.
to no
Amen.
position on the moral front, totally immoral to the core, doesn't have a sense of right and wrong, and any port for a storm in terms of his political survivability. But we know all the wind has been taken out of his political sail. His tire is totally deflated, and he will do anything to arrive at a point where he can keep at minimum those sycophants and those in the rank and file of the party who clearly are saying, and I had an opportunity today, of course, to talk to a pollster. They're doing a survey in and around the east-west corridor, and they're telling me that people are saying, and that is disturbing, at least to the pollsters who should not have an opinion, but of course just collate the information, but we should have one. People are saying that they're not voting, or if when they're voting, they're voting. That tells a story. It tells us that quite a huge amount of people have rejected the PNM. That is what that says. Because if that was not so, and Rowley and they, if you ask them, they would say that they have done so well. They have done so well that the people are going to give them another term. When people are saying that they are not prepared to vote on the East-West corridor in PNM constituencies, I'm talking about, very important. Once again, as we have assessed the UNC and whatever combination that they would construct for the next elections, clearly is on the ascendancy. And the PNM continue, of course, to wallow in their misery and in their criminal behavior and in their misbehavior in public office, in their kickbacks and their corruption that has become, of course, a stereotypical of this administration. Yes, indeed. That is what is the reality in Trinidad and Tobago today. And therefore, we continue to see the degradation, the downgrading, and the deterioration of the PNM as a party. And of course, those persons who have responsibility within the party and in government clearly have lost their way and cannot be considered to be
$21 million to do that inquiry. And they could have spent 1 million and give the people the 20 million, right?
That's right.
Yeah? And all the problem in that was the man who put on the switch, the vacuum switch.
Yeah, the man
It was
who
off,
generated
and the man who put it on
the
is the man
delta
who
P. Yeah, who created the delta P. Yes, I agree.
exactly, if he didn't put on the switch. Because they was working in the pipe.
Yes,
And
that's
why
right.
it is this man didn't tag on and tag off the switch. Plus they're supposed to lock that gate where I have that switch. And one man had to have that key. And only one key it's supposed to have.
Yeah, so
So
there was
I don't know what
there was procedural.
the inquiry in that.
Yeah, there was procedural, and of course, what I consider be reckless behavior, because they
Thank
know
you.
once that switch is activated, what the consequences will be, and yet still they didn't take the necessary precaution. I wonder what OSHA is saying next. By the 24th will be the 2 years that within which any I should say criminal or civil action, civil action can be taken. 2 years. But of course, the criminal action, there is no limit to criminal behavior. So that will continue as far as the investigations are concerned. But certainly in terms of the civil action, which of course is not jail or punishment, but of course is hitting the pockets of Paria or those who are found culpable, because there are two at least players there, Paria and of course according to the report of the Commission of Inquiry, the employer or not, of course, avoid that. But certainly, because it occurred on the Paria's compound, and because Paria's officials played a critical role in terms of telling the Coast Guards what not to do, and then the action of someone to, of course, initiate the Delta P process could only be, the only people to be culpable is employees or members or officials of Paria, and therefore in such circumstances the culpability and the responsibility is clear, and therefore action should be taken rather than Dr. Rowley and his hogwash and his obfuscations in the parliament and outside of the parliament. Let's go straight to the lines. Pleasant good night, welcome. Pleasant good night, welcome.
Hello, good night, Lennox.
Good night to you.
Yes, hello, Lennox, good night. Are you hearing me clearly?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Well, you see me? I hear what I think. Hear what I think about Rowley. I find he shouldn't come back to this country, But the people in this country stupid. He say that, and they're stupid. You see? Nobody go by the airport and run him and all these kind of things. I find they should be running him like how they run Manning out of Balisier House when they lose the election. Because the thing that man do to this country, dealing with that criminal in that gas deal thing, you hear? The U.S. warned them to stay away from that man. People talking whole time. And he's seeing how the man robbing him. He still continue. It's not only we ain't going to get through with that thing because of how they put in like the sanctions in April, It's the money we lost in the train one. And the money we lost in this gas. People get burned up in this gas, the liquid plant where he and them open up. They want to sell this. There's inside of here, He have Rowley tie up, down to this these oil producing company here, where they have these people selling gas and they have their bunker and all this thing. Private owner, they getting the blight. Private owners getting the blight. That is why they closed down the oil refinery and all this big setup show and thing that they wanted to sell it to Patriot. They use Roger, and that is what the Brotherhood does do. He says wrongdoers, that is what the Brotherhood does do. All kind of set up things. That's how the head of the mafia set up the United States. I set up big talk in boldface and bad and say that all that took place in Barbados is dead. That's how we say it in Spanish. Right? Plain say dead. He care anything about we? He know if he do all of that. He know very well they're going to put back the sanction. He care anything about Trinidad? Or he care about typical Venezuelan? You hear? All he care about is the money. It has value. And he rubbing up. And he getting through. Right? And that is not the only thing they do with them. They do several things, including that trade they have, where they have boats coming in from the eastern part, so they could get food to buy here. All of that is evading the sanctions, right? They have access to come in here to bring in things for the Venezuelan people. It's more for them, it's more them gaining off of this trade. They live in here, they want certain things from the country. It come like we when we outside there, you want pigtail to eat, you want callaloo, you want these things, you could hardly get it in certain countries. Okay. When you get it, you're happy, you're glad for it. Well, it's the same thing with them. It have a trees they like to eat. I tired see some of them who not in the trade, they're doing a little illegal thing. Some of our fishermen, they're holding them with the cheese, a kind of white cheese and bucket, all them things they're bringing in. And then these Venezuelans, they're making money too because it's expensive here. They're selling it. They're selling for it, they're collecting and they're selling it. The people want it, they're buying it expensive. And it's so they just be living. They're doing 2 and 3 hustle. They're getting money from the United Nations, the U.S. sending money for them, and they're getting it through unprofitable organizations. And they're getting checks, they're getting their money in hand twice a year, and plus they're getting jobs here. This is why the country in a mess, right? It's nothing for the poor people, nothing. Look, Lennox, I so vexed. I find this man, they should pelt him out. It should have some kind of overthrow. We must go through all this kind of thing. Look at the people, they won't pay Rowley, no in company with the man have commissioner inquiry, and he wouldn't pay the people for their family for how they die in the pipeline. This is too much of wickedness. This big head, big brain Venezuelan president man robbing we people here. People feeling good about that. Them paying them at night. Or they talk good about that. And some of them will like to talk about the black man and the black people and the black. Well, look at how he robbing we black people over here with this Oreo. Lennox, I will talk another time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And that is the reality of Trinidad and Tobago today. We can't avoid it. We cannot, of course, obfuscate. But, of course, there is a reprieve. There is one thing that has to happen. That since he voluntarily understands that he is toxic, that he is a cesspool of corruption and nepotism, and since he doesn't understand that he is incompetent and that he's a rockhead and that he has, of course, an empty brain and that, of course, he is totally and absolutely an innate, of course, who is totally foolish, dotish, and asinine and greedy, as she rightly said, greedy, to fill their pockets with unmerited and undeserving resources, whether directly or indirectly from the coffers of the country, but they cannot claim anything that they would have gotten while they were in office to be of their own doing, because anything that would have come into the country whilst they were prime minister and ministers, etc., belongs to the people. They cannot take it for themselves. And that is what is conditioning what is happening today. That's why that monstrosity called Balisier House must be condemned. Must be condemned. A pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night. Welcome.
How are you doing? I remember sometime before the Christmas I told you how remember sometime before the Christmas I spoke to you about this is what PNM is about. When Texaco was so they take a set of square peg and round hole and put them there. And put it.
Yes, indeed. Go ahead. I hear you slightly. You guys speak.
How are you doing?
You'll call back? All right. I heard that they put a set a square peg in a round hole when Texaco left. All right. I see you trying. Get your act together, and of course you can call back because of course 10 o'clock comes pretty expeditiously on this program. So we want to, of course, utilize as much time as possible to expose as much as possible and to, of course, convince the people that they have a duty and responsibility when they go to the polls. That is inevitable, whether it be, of course, next year in 2025 or whether it be this year in 2024. What is very important is that, of course, they have a thorough time, the government that is, in the next 12 months of 2024. Let's go back to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome. Good night. Welcome.
This internet in trouble government too bad, boy.
All right. Okay. I see you fighting up. Go ahead.
I had reached where they put square peg in wrong hole when they sold Texaco.
Yes.
And Texaco was sold to Trinidad.
Yes.
People from university and brought them inside here. That is when that refinery started.
Mm-hmm.
He told you that, right?
Yeah.
That after all we used to do, everything started to go down under the PNM government, right? And what happened there in Paria? Same thing again. I said a square peg in the wrong hole. Illiteracy.
Yeah.
That line. What was the reason they had? What was the reason they sent them fellas in that pipeline to do? To come and recommit? Because remember, these shippers used to come in and go back to Venezuela. The next thing.
Yes.
Boy, you nearly gave me trouble last night.
Tell me.
For sure. That it nearly gave me nightmare. I had to focus. It's only that face is only a great grandmother could love. And my brother, I'll talk to you tomorrow again. Let's internet in real trouble.
Yeah, the phone give trouble.
Internet in real.
All right, thanks very much for your contribution. But
So I'll get a call tomorrow. This
all right. Okay. All right.
Mr. Remax, he was real on target day last night.
Yes.
He was on real target day.
Yes, thank you. I will. Thank you very much. Of course, and that is the nature of the callers that are extremely concerned about the tragedy that is, of course, Trinidad and Tobago today. And of course, I cannot overemphasize the need to convince the people that the Balisier House is a den of corruption. It was founded on corruption. I'm talking about the house itself, built by Rowley. $100 million. Where the hell he get it from? Where he got it from? Where he got it from? Well, listen to him.
TTT. whatever it's called, CNMG, what it's called, they had another bill to hundreds of thousands. And we have staff to pay in Balisier House. That was my starting point. As I can tell you today, Balisier House is not only safe and secure, but we are building a brand new Balisier House. And we've liquidated our debts. You PNM members, many of you dipped your hands in your pocket over the last 13 years. 13 years we have been raising the necessary funds to make sure that our party builds a modern headquarters on lands that our party obtained way back in the last century. As your political leader, alongside my colleagues, we work very hard and we work very lawfully and we built up the resources, and today your party is close to completing the construction of a brand new multi-story building at Balisier House, built after 13 years of toil. And we are renovating the old building at the same time. You would think that anybody who is decent will say to a 68-year-old party, well done. Know that one day soon, we will all gather in tranquility in the street, and you will look in pride and look satisfaction at the building we have built. All of a sudden, that contractors and government project building Balisier House. Would you believe that? And that is meant to tarnish the effort that you have made for the last 13 years. The names of all the contributors. What I want to do is for me to tell them, you give 1,000, so they can harass your daughter when she's working. You give 1 million, they can harass your company. I will tell them today, country and the PNM will build its headquarters. And if they know that we have done something wrong, the nearest police station, the Balisier House, is police headquarters. Every month, I'm in the mayor of Sanctions over there. He too. Every councillor, every mayor, every minister, everybody, every month you have to give, before you do anything else, give 5% of your salary to Balisier House. That is a requirement in the PNM, because we say to office holders, it is through the party that you got that office. So my first job as leader of the PNM was to save Balisier House. Perfect organization that I am now not carrying on. You know what my portion was? One of the first meetings I had was in a bank. Because a banker called me and told me, hey, your party owes this bank $4 million. And if it's not paid, we will have to, the only asset the party had was Balisier House. So my first job as leader of the PNM was to save Balisier House. You think it was only that? PTSC sending a bill for 800,000. TTT had whatever it's called, CNMG or what it's called, they had another bill for hundreds of thousands. And we have staff to pay in Balisier House. That was my starting point as opposition leader. I can tell you today, Balisier House is not only safe and secure, but we are building a brand new Balisier House. After 13 years of toil, and we are renovating the old building at the same time, you would think that anybody...
Rowley, shut your ass. Shut your ass, clot. The fact of the matter is that after 50 years, you got the party a set of opportunities to, of course, get money, save money, talk to ministers, talk to councillors for 50 years. The party couldn't do that. 50 years before he took over the party couldn't do that. And under Williams, under Chambers, and under Manning, 50 years. He inherited, of course, a party with 5 million 8 of which he spent as so far 9th. This one is the 9th as Prime Minister. And it's only because of Bobol corruption kicks back that he could boast about over $1 million that the party has been able, of course, to attract. Hold your tail, you blasted corrupt. And you cannot, of course, fine $1 million cent. Of course, or should we say, he could only fine $1 million when he realized that he could go no further in terms of the excuses and the shambolic, what I consider to be square peg and round hole, cacophonous babblings and ambulatory verbalization, simply because he has a huge orifice at the bottom of his face, called a mouth, that of course will give him liberty to speak. Every time he talks that, not only must he, of course, get the plague of Pinocchio, not only that, and by now, if he got the plague of Pinocchio, his nose could doubly circumnavigate the blasted earth. Yes, I say, Rowley's plague with lying and thieving could circumnavigate the earth with the length of nose that you can imagine that he would have had if of course that fable was true, and if of course lying was equated to of course the extension of your nose, you bald-headed ugly son of a gun. And while, of course, all of that is happening, he has a sleepy Minister of National Security, narcoleptic, called Hines, playing the fool. But look at him. Look at Hines. And you will get an appreciation as to what we are talking about. Yes, indeed. This is the man. Yes, indeed. Narcoleptic. Narcoleptic Hines. Narcoleptic Hines. Let's go straight to the lines. Pleasant good night. Welcome.
Good night, Lennox.
Good night to you.
Alice,
Go ahead, my friend.
I really need this.
I hear you too clearly. Yes, same to you, my friend. We'll talk. Yeah, playing up Pinocchio. Maybe the real sign is that he's all over the globe trotting, and of course, frequent flyer benefits to be derived. But then again, he went to talk crime in America, in the United States, but did not carry his Minister of National Security. Did not carry his Minister of National Security. And that is because, clearly, they have dug the bottom of the barrel and come up with what we call in Laventil, as we refer to Hines, as the peacock, plenty flair, but no depth. The peacock. And of course, there's also a saying in Laventil, he could go a competition with an alligator, bite to bite, and he will win. But look him here, as he, of course, mutate into what he really is. Look him there. Yes. Bite to bite with a blasted alligator. And trying to tell us that somehow, illusionarily, and without, of course, any kind of statistical data as well as words of comfort and optimism that everything going to be all right. Rowley said that, and last night, of course, we showed the plethora of promises made as far as crime is concerned, and the singular thing he has not left out, well, I should say, he has left out, I should say, is that the PNM must blasted go before things start to get better. He and his party, Rowley, Hines, and all of them, those monsters of insecurity, yes, must go, you ugly son of a gun. All of them. Yes, indeed. As somebody told me the other day, all of them went to some kind of a cookout. And they say the ugliest man must wash the wares. You know what I say they went on a cookout and the ugliest man must wash the wares. And everybody watching at Rowley. And Rowley asked them, what are you watching at me for? Look, Hines Day. Yes, the ugliest man must wash the wares. And that is what happens in an organization like that, that is nasty, that is evil. And let me tell all you something. I from Laventille, they feel they could give more fatigue or no so-called intellectual teacher whose specialization was a common entrance or the C exam. The amount of words we will give, of course, the students to learn in preparation for the exam, yes, indeed. So the malapropism, yes, that's a term. The malapropism that Hines exhibits. Malapropism simply means a person who uses a lot of big words, but it means nothing. Nothing. One time, of course, I told him in the corridors of the magistrate court in Port of Spain, I said, the raison d'etre of the PNM is to steal. He tried to tell me that is raison d'etre or some other not meaning, but of course he understands the meaning because it means the reason for living, the reason for doing what you're doing. So he understands that, but he tried to tell me, so all I tell him, listen, since you want to correct me, and I am using, of course, local parlance, and of course, with the appropriate action or accent, then listen, go in Jamaica, and when they say boy, you tell them no, the word is boy, and see if they kick your tail out. What you tell him about? What you tell him about? A bunch of malapropism. And what irks me is that people like Al-Rari, who was made, of course, Attorney General, when Hines used in Belmont, sometime at one of the, what I consider to be poorly attended, but nonetheless, public relations, gimmickry meetings after one of the budgets. And he talked about, of course, he used the word discombobulation. And of course, Al-Rari said afterwards, that's why he liked to, of course, talk or associate with Hines, because he could learn something. And for the first time, he heard the word discombobulation. Well, discombobulation, people simply means confused or confusion. That's all it means. But if you have an Attorney General that doesn't understand that word, and then it shows. And birds of feather flock together, and show me a friend, I will show you who you are. Show me your associates, in other words, and I'll tell you who you are. Well, Rowley was not to be outdone. Rowley, of course, told us that you dot the T and cross the I. He told us that. And when Robert Amar with whom, of course, he was displeased, but frayed like cat frayed water. Yes, indeed. He frayed him like cat frayed water. Just as how he frayed me. It is trepidation. You nasty son of a gun. You are a predator and a political, and I almost say literal, but of course I will be exaggerating, but a kobo, a political kobo that feast on the decaying or decayed flesh, an attack with a propensity and an exercise of aggression being the best form of defense. So low he thinks of himself, and so, of course, so insignificant he knows himself to be and seen by the people. In other words, he has a deep inferiority complex. Professor, good night. Welcome to the corridor. Professor, good night. Welcome to the... Well, of course, I'm there fighting up and making certain that the UNC has... that UNC has the advantage, and that the PNM must be where they are in the doldrums, and of course on their way to hell on a gasoline-soaked paper bag. Go ahead, my friend. How you like Heinz?
You are my neighbor, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You treated each other on bad. Yes, you have a neighbor, right? And you treated each other on bad, right?
Yeah.
And you want to beg him back to the give him a
That's what he has gone to do.
They're going to put the rock on that 24 they're going to put the rock on that he can't have no in it. You think much more care about what happened? Well, we can't do, because that is wrongly claim to pay for the next general election. If you get it, yeah, the dragon gas people they grow. He gonna be like a man selling roses. He gonna look nice in front of the public. But it is back for anything.
As usual.
He was saying that the gas dragon gas is like on him. Right, but what Drew doing what he wants. And I tell you that all these deals last time, right? Including the one up in with Ronald Gonzalez, with the prime president and everything, nothing. I tell you when I see the stream, he go in jail and he just don't care, he's a madman. He go straight in there and prison and I tell you so. Watch and see, when Marshall, you see that better. And Dr. Rowley, you can talk all you want. You like to tell him so you can you not more crime. Right? Once you mix it with the dog who are free, they get in the place too. But those are the problem part in the place what they do.
Are you going to beg for leniency for him? It's a shame.
Yes, indeed. You might have had an audio problem there with that last caller, but that would have been a studio issue. But of course, all his friends are abandoning him, and we predicted that. We told you that when the friends start to abandon, that is time, of course, for you to understand where you must go for shelter. We told you so. We told you that when his friends start to abandon him, and significant ones in particular, you must go for shelter. And while, of course, we detest what the clergy, those members of the cloth, those who are part of the ecclesiastic elements of the society, ecclesiastic church, and they went there in an ecumenical environment, meaning that several churches praying for that devilish, that Luciferian edifice, that barbaric, and that, of course, monstrosity of steel, iron, concrete, gravel, cement, sand, and all of the other ingredients that will make a building. I say to you, the white elephant that it is, and the corrupt source that was dependent upon in order to reach where it is 5 stories high. I say to you, when you go to Pointe-à-Pierre and you are passing on the highway, whether you're going south or you are coming back north, just look onto the compound of the oil refinery in Pointe-à-Pierre, and you will see a steel structure similar to what is there right now at Balisier House. Well, that is a symbol of Malcolm Jones's legacy. You know what I say? I say it is a symbol of Malcolm Jones's legacy. That is the legacy. Corruption, nepotism, profligacy and waste, and of course, abuse of office and resources of the country. And therefore, Balisier House, that part must remain as it is. As some say, they didn't know why the entire thing didn't fall down on them people and them, but the smart, they had that function outside of that building and not inside in the main. Understand? They had it in the courtyard because they know the level of sin that would have assembled there and coagulated there. They would not have been able to be countenanced or stomached by the Almighty. And therefore they kept the exercise on the compound under tents rather than under the building. Significant developments. But I want you, of course, to verify, certify what I'm saying. You can't miss it. And just as so, you can't miss that going to or from San Fernando. Once you veer west and look at the legacy of Malcolm Jones, a steel structure that was supposed to be the administrative building with all the monies that was consumed and wasted and stolen, and no doubt ratification and concern was expressed by the Privy Council when, of course, for an entirely different matter, the obiter dicta. You know, there is something called ratio decidendi in terms of decisions that are made by the court. Ratio decidendi as well as obiter dicta. Well, ratio decidendi is the reason for the decision that the court would have made. But there's also another aspect in terms of its observation and the obiter dicta. In, of course, the case of the Malcolm Jones matter, where a local person wanted to get information as to how come and where is the information that caused, of course, the government to withdraw the Malcolm Jones matter. Yes, indeed. It went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council was, of course, adjudicating on that particular substantive to access documents under the Freedom of Information Act from the, of course, the board of Petrochin at the time. But what they also said is that they are extremely concerned, and don't get me vexed before I play it, you know. Don't get me vexed before I play it. And the Privy Council said, as they did, of course, with the government attempting, of course, to usurp and to undermine our democratic right to vote in the local government election past. And if it was not for the Privy Council, we would have had that election sometime this year. But just as that occasion, the Privy Council said, in no uncertain terms, Malcolm Jones flitted away at his turn at the helm of Petrotrin. It's big money for Trinidad, big money. And who the hell make the decision? In other words, and those are I'm paraphrasing here, but I have to paraphrase with anger, with my own irascibility and of course, choleric expression. Yes, let them know that they are damn fools. Let them go in the blasted dictionary, of course, because it's you. I would, of course, explain a person who is, of course, very, very agitated. choleric, and of course, irascible. And of course, they said in no uncertain terms that is big money that Malcolm just threw away. And how come Rowley and them could pull that matter out of the court? They made that as part of their obiter dicta, by the way, expression and observation in the matter, and as so they have a duty so to express. And Rowley and they will see that as nebulous and as nothing and as nonchalant. No, no, no. We must tell them that we know and we understand, and we are going to damn well talk out, and it will be a hot 12 months in 2024. Hot 12 months. But I was talking about, of course, the abandonment of Rowley by his friends. Well, one of those, in the early days, of course, we have already seen Roger say, "Not me, I gone." And he started, of course, to organize protests, and he found himself even at the former prime minister and opposition leaders' crime symposium. He ain't taking chances. He has already abandoned Rowley, a man who, of course, carried effigies of the former prime minister, Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Now he's up in arms against, of course, Rowley. Let's go to the lines, and then, of course, we will continue. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor.
Hello, good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you.
Hello, good night.
Good night to you.
Yes.
Good night.
Yes, Mr. Lennox, I'm hearing you. Mr. Lennox, are you aware that Venezuela has been slapped with sanctions?
Yes, a very long time now.
While Mr. Yes, well, listen, while they were talking all that nice talking in America, right? And while this talk was going on, the Americans and them slapped Venezuela with sanctions. So that whole thing in April will be none and more. It's going to be trouble for Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow. Well, I'm
trouble for Rowley and them.
I know the intention was. I don't know if it was officially done. So you're saying that it was officially done? It was officially done. All right. I'll check it out.
Yes, they get slapped with sanctions.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll check it out.
Okay, check it out.
Yes, I'll check it out. Yes. Yeah, because I don't like the idea of having to, of course, in any way jump on board without, of course, my own, what I consider to be ratification or certification or another word I can use of course, I can say the veracity of it. We will, of course, look into the truth of it. Yes, indeed. So that is what we are talking about. But listen to, of course, Selwyn Kojo. You will be amazed. I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs so that you get the gist. I'm going to put it up, of course, probably tomorrow. But listen to Kojo. This is Kojo, of course, in an article entitled, of course, Rowley cannot solve our crime problem. Now, just imagine that. Selwyn Kojo is saying that I don't have a picture of him, but let's go straight to the line because it's important that you make your inputs, and on these occasions you are more important than I am. And of course we have our external, of course, external presenter on the line. A pleasant. Why am I not getting accept? Let me see what's happening here. A pleasant good night. Welcome. Pleasant good night.
A pleasant good night to you, Lennox. Good night to you. Are you hearing me good?
Loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear. Loud and
right.
clear.
You know that's most important there.
Yes,
and a good night to everybody on the chat.
Yes.
Lennox, Rowley must be pig biting mad tonight. He must be, and he coming back here cussing it. You want to bet he coming back here cussing, everybody.
I predicted that.
And Carnival will get it worse than anybody.
Yeah.
He coming, he coming back to cuss Kamala too. He was saying Kamala he goes. Because you remember the The last deal that fell through, he said it was Kamala and Guaido
Yes.
caused that to fall,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You remember that first time?
Oh, yes.
You remember the first time Farah said,
Yes.
yeah, Farah said 2 weeks' time, pipes will be laid, we get in the gas. Look at another one fall through. But you know what? I'm not going to remember that. Because I sent you some documents with him, some readings with him, where he predicted what was going to happen. And he's been saying this months now, what was going to happen. That's why I like to listen to Kevin Ramnarine. He's real good. And because he said it. He said this thing is going to collapse. And look, it did. Rowley only fooling himself and he's fooling the sycophants and them.
Yeah.
He's fooling them.
Any port for our salvation?
I don't know, but we're going to have
any port for our salvation
yeah,
opportunity.
We just have to be prepared. She's going to have to be prepared to get cussed when he come back. Because he's going to look for somebody, going to look for a scapegoat.
Of course.
He's going to look for a scapegoat. Yeah. But Lennox, what I found very strange, Dr. Farrell, say that we have no forex shortage. Who claims not to say these things, Lennox?
Yeah, I read that. Go ahead. I will make my comment after.
Yeah, Lennox, people cannot get money. People cannot get money to send for their children abroad, right? You have to go 6 and 7 times to the bank to get a little bit of money to travel. And this man is saying yes, but you see, he has to do that. You remember he was on the growth economy or whatever that was?
Yes,
right?
And
he has to say that to keep in favor with the PNM. And look at it now. You are saying that we have none. I mean, we have no shortage. And you have Massey using it for necromancy. You have Heinz talking in one way with necromancy. And when we know the Obia man. We know the Obia man. He got rotten the Obia man. They really take people in this country for fools, Lennox.
I tell you.
They really take us for fools.
To the extreme
and
delusion. Delusion.
But Lennox, the longest rope has an end.
Oh, yes.
And Rowley rope is coming to an end. It's coming to an end. You see this? I want to see what face now he's going to use to come back here with this thing. You went up there and you lied. You lied to the people. You lied to the United Nations. You had everybody lying for you to get this doctorate. You're going up here with a different story now. You couldn't talk crime here, but you're going there to talk crime.
Yes.
Yeah, and look at now. The man is the laughing stock of the Caribbean and maybe the rest of the world. Lennox, thanks a lot and have a good night for listening to my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. And in that scenario, he also used CARICOM to get there, quite apart from that bogus, that fake honorary doctorate scenario, because the new Biden would have been there, so you could have had clearly a one-on-one. And therefore, the other, what I consider to be a subsidiary or the other members of his cabinet will have to gravitate because that is normal. And so they give him a hearing. And then, of course, knowing full well that he is a Maduro supporter. Just as how they relax the sanctions on Venezuela, the Americans I'm talking about, but they have not taken away the fact that if they catch him offside in any country where they have influence, the 15 million bounty that they have on Maduro's head would be realized. Just as, of course, like Alexa got it. Of course, tomorrow we will talk about the Venezuelan fiasco and, of course, the Dragon deal in connection with that, because I was going to play tonight, but based on the new information that was delivered by, I am not going to question any caller, except to say that I reserve the right to verify. That's all I'm saying. So it's not that I'm not questioning, but I'm verifying. And I do so with, as far as possible, instantaneous proof. Yes. What is that? I play a video for you. I read a statement for you, so that no way, no one could say that they didn't know. You see, I believe in the biblical scriptures that speaks of the word must be spread to every corner of the earth before retribution starts. So I take this philosophy seriously on, of course, whether it be the ground report or whether, of course, it is the corridor transformation. Because you see, if you know, and then act contrary to what is required because you know, then there is no excuse. So a person who knows and does not know, he does not know, we could tolerate that. But a person who knows and knows that he knows and still execute the contrary, then he must be jettisoned, because he or she is destructive. Pastor, good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pastor, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good evening, Lennox.
Good night to you as well.
Lennox.
Hey.
The vengeance and Moko is on this country, you know.
Oh yes, indeed.
You know why I say that? This man went in Parliament and castigate 4 Delhi and have these people suffering for the last couple of years to protect the brothers around the world. Right? And this is why all these things happening here right now. Dragon Gas, this is at the beginning. Wait, watch and see. They're going to see everything falling apart because of this man's wickedness. I tell you, God don't sleep, you know. He just wear pajamas, and he wearing the pajamas here now. Have a good night, man.
Yes, of course, spiritual wickedness in high places. That is what the Bible refers to. Spiritual wickedness in high places. And let us just give a cursory recognition to the multiple promises made, optimism, the utopia, the feeling of bliss. Rowley told us since 2015, and we are now experiencing on a daily basis a dystopia. Total pain, ache, agony, and of course, all of the evil that could be conjured up in circumstances where none of us would have made contribution except for expecting, as we have reposed our trust in a government, in a party that came with a manifesto. They were not going to interfere with subsidies, that they were not going to deal with property tax. That, of course, if on the 8th of September, when the election in 2015 was on the 7th of September, I remember that very distinctly, and Rowley, now, of course, hogwash and platitudinous and simplistic, simpleton behavior and comments. He told us that you're doing yourself an injustice if on the 8th of September you did not throw out Kamala Prasad Bisesa and bring him in. And today, we are reeling from, of course, the disappointment and the contrary. That man should be, of course, totally annihilated politically, of course. A pleasant good night. Welcome. We have you on the phone. Good night.
Good night, Lennox.
Good night. Trying to get you. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what I have to say? Trinidad has become a land of obia. Obia is dominating the face of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, because every body in high society, they believe in obia now. Rowley started it.
Yes.
Rowley started, and now Marcy went. Everybody is doing it because they want to get rich. Another thing is that I read the Trinidad Express, where the U.S. slapped back the sanction on Venezuela.
Oh, okay, you got it there. All right, good, yes.
They wouldn't renew the license again. It will expire on the 18th of April, and they're not going to renew the license.
Wow.
So I want to know all the beaten chests and all the big holla that Smallpin and Rowley was doing. Where it's going now? Because I read that today where Rowley begging in the States for help for the fight crime.
Yes.
For money to fight crime.
Yes.
You see, this man have no shame. This man have no shame. And if Trinidadians don't open their eyes now and get rid of that man, Trinidad will come like Haiti.
Oh, yes. No doubt. Yes. Thank you very much. And of course, we will do our best to avoid it. We have a duty to avoid it. Oh, sorry.
Right now in Canada, Trinidad come a laughing stock, eh?
Yes, of course, all over the world. And in the Caribbean.
Trinidad come a laughing stock. People just laugh at Trinidadians. You walk on the street, they know you're Trinidadians. Look these people, what is going on in the country. You know? And Rowley is the cause of it. You see? Anyhow, good night, Lennox. You take care.
Yes, you too, my friend. Nice talking to you. 1 and 2. All the best for 2024. Yes, indeed, people. But I'm tempted. Before, of course, I gave the multiple and the plethora of what we can now call pie in the sky. Pie in the sky, because none of them materialized. So it's pie in the sky that began, of course, with saying that on the 8th of September 2015, you heard him. He said that if you bring back Kamala Prasad Bisesa and you didn't vote me in, you'll be losing out because I can, of course, do more with less. That asinine specimen of inhumanity. He could do more with less. He could do more with less. And I wondered, well, what is this man talking about? How the hell you could do more with less? And let me tell you something. He does answer the asinine or the foolish or the inane statements that he knew that he would have made, or he had made, Yeah, he answers it. Because when the public servants early in his administration want the government at that time to deliver the increase in emoluments and salaries negotiated by the Kamala or negotiated with the Kamala Prasad Bisesa administration or PP government. And then, of course, it went over into the Rowley administration in 2015. And of course, when he saw the people coming around the Whitehall or coming around his office, it was in Sinclair at the time, not Whitehall. You can't go wrong with Whitehall, so they could have gone wrong, of course, the one in Sinclair. He then turned and say, when they demanded, he said, listen, that is an impossible equation. You cannot extract more from less. That dunderhead and that opportunistic political parasite. Professor, good night. Welcome. Professor, good night. Welcome.
Yeah, Professor, good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you.
Also, good night to everybody live, everybody in chat, and everybody regionally internationally. So, Mr. Lennox, we know this dragon gas field was just a pie in the sky. You see, the thing is, when we was talking about like a year ago, A year ago, remember I called you and tell you, the world is saying, some of them in the world is saying America was wrong for sanctioning them because a certain situation. So America give them a little leeway to let the world know, here, look, we give them a little leeway. All we wanted was fair elections for Venezuela, and the man refused to do it. So here, take this. This is why we sanction him now. So they just give them back the reason why they sanction him in the first place, because you don't want to have fair democracy in the country. But the sad thing about it now, Mr. Lennox, is that we know this man, this Prime Minister, we have Dr. Rowley, is a vindictive and a man full of hate. And then we still have a year again and 8 months before election. And this man will go down and raid that treasury. He will cripple the treasury before he go. Because he's vindictive. And he don't like nobody. But then when UNC win in 2025, and we all know UNC going to win in 25, what predicament that will leave for UNC? UNC will have to initiate drastic measures to bring back the economy. And a lot of people hate them to that. So it's all food for thought, Mr. Lennox, and thank you very much, and have a good night.
You see, I have a slightly different view on that one. You see, when Rowley talked about the country and Innsbruck before the election was running on fumes, you notice they don't talk that again. And that is history. That is what propelled them into government, in addition, of course, to the fake and false emails and the so-called Rishmi and the Section 34, all storms in a teacup. You know what I say? I say all storms in a teacup. And he told us as well that the country, he saved the country from going to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. What an ass. He believed that all of us are stupid. You inherited $5 billion US in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. In addition to reserves upwards of $10 billion US dollars. More than 12 months of imports, and that is the international benchmark. That is how people determine the health of your economy, and that is how you can get money, borrow, etc. All of that. Moody and S&P and them, and of course our local, should I say our Caribbean credit rating agency will make the assessment on that. And then of course he also got in the private banks of the country over $5 billion as well. And it was estimated at the time that the businesses, if they were minded to borrow from the banks, could only utilize about $3 billion of that $5 billion that was in the banks. But the blighted that we now know he is, nobody wanted to borrow money because they're afraid. If you have, and when you have a government that small men ask their parents, ask their families to invest in a contract that they got to through the education facilities company. Let me tell you, man, understand, through the education, delay, these people, over 20 of them and counting, small companies, get a school or refurbish the sewer system or put in some electrical fittings. They went to the court. The court said that the government, therefore the education facilities company, must pay these people because they have the documents and complete certificate of approval by the relevant authorities within that particular entity, created, of course, under a P&M administration, Manning in particular. And they say pay. The court say pay them. What Rowley did? And if you didn't have the money, you could negotiate, of course, and say, I'll pay you this portion, or could you forego this because we are in a tight situation, we are in a bind. But no, he didn't do that. He went to the same court and decided to wind up the company. You know what I say he decided to wind up the company, meaning that the company is no longer responsible for the court-awarded monies or you will catch your aunt Nenen and everything else in order to get that money because the company no longer exists, as he went to the court and, of course, wind up Educational Facilities Company. This man is a consummate backside. You know, when that information reaches foreign and potential investors, but they say, but this government is belligerent. This government is the epitome of a dictatorial and autocratic regime. How the court could say, pay the people, and you decide now the company that is supposed, or through which the government must pass the money in order to pay them, you wind it up. What message are you sending? So, over the last 9 years, Trinidad and Tobago was direct non-oil investment has dried up. Has dried up. That is what Rowley did. So understand, the point I am making is that with all of that, and the fact that he could say that he saved us from going to the IMF is another misnomer. The man suffers from, of course, what I consider to be an acute state of mythomania, spontaneous lies. His mendaciousness and his prevarications are unlimited. Listen, the IMF will run you. You know what I say? I said the IMF will run you if you come for their money and you have a solid bank account. You are washed with money and you coming by us. IMF is the bank of what? Last resort. Ask Barbados and Motley. And if Robinson was alive, ask Robinson. In 1986, when we had about 2 months or 3 months of import, after a PNM administration flit away the many opportunities for gains and savings, as Rowley is doing now. We have a tremendous debt burden. He moved it from 44% to vacillating around 95 to 100% since he came into government, borrowing wild and talking hogwash, and at the same time, not one project that was supposed to, of course, augment or replace and therefore satisfy and justify the borrowings that he has borrowed. So from that perspective, I'm saying all this to tell the caller that it is about management. The PNM under Rowley has fallen down because they thief too much. It was not about the question of the country running on fumes. That's a figment of Rowley and their imagination to deflect attention as they build, of course, all kinds of family dwellings that will, of course, not attract taxes for 25 years, whether he did it in what was formerly called Likoto or Imbert, right, of course, in Woodbrook in Port of Spain. And of course, Al-Rari and its multiple buildings, whether of course is number 1 Alexandra, number 3 Alexandra, or on the one at the corner of Abercrombie and Oxford Street, or the one just opposite the Town Hall in Port of Spain on Frederick Street, or the IQA building in Barataria, where of course the government The government has contracted that building to unfold and of course execute property tax. They have 3 floors there. So the point I am making I'm saying here that I have a slight different view that one simultaneous program of investment to augment, and you do not, of course, engage in victimization and malicious conduct like Rowley did with OAS, starve the people from getting their monies to continue the highway to Point 14. And obviously, they have to make a business decision. P&M corrupt administration. And therefore, they had nothing to get. Balisier House is the symbol of that. They had nothing to get. And I want to tell you the same project, the largest that we could ever have conjured up and execute, the highway to Point 14. $7 billion, the largest. How you think the UNC was financing that? They were financing it through the consolidated fund. They didn't borrow no money, you know. Rowley was telling them as opposition leader to borrow money. They say no. When money comes in from taxes every quarter, they are going to pay OAS, and OAS was being paid. They might get paid late because all the taxes that they expected might not have come in on time, but they did, and they were satisfied. But Rowley, politically blind because of his vindictive and vendetta propensity, and as I've always said, if Kamala and the UNC was not in existence, let me repeat. If Kamala and the UNC was not in existence for the shenanigans and the incompetence and the impotence of Rowley and his minions, they would have invented a Kamala Prasad Bisesa and a UNC. You know what I say? I say Rowley and them would have invented a Kamala Prasad Bisesa and a UNC just to blame somebody else for their incompetence, their greed, and of course their corruption and their nepotism and their inability to do anything right. That's the waste time. So I say all of this to say it's about management. The UNC would not have focused on those vanity projects around the savannah. For example, the UNC would not have built, even though they said it, but built a road to, of course, Manzanilla that I passed there today. At one time, it had no entrance to it and no exit. A highway costing $400 million. They would not have done that. They would have delayed or staggered or asked, of course, contractors to be an investor in their own right. They have something called the Bolt arrangement. You have something called the PPP arrangement, private public partnership arrangement, PPP, a number of mechanisms. So what is clear is that it was impossible for Trinidad and Tobago to, of course, have gone to the IMF, even now, because whilst he has reduced the reserves from 10 billion that he met there to about 6, I say is more like 4. If, of course, he burns it up by now and then, well, of course, they have to go to the IMF, no doubt, to, of course, maintain the standard of living of Trinidad and Tobago. But just like Robinson, they were able to bring back the economy to even keel. Robinson paid the price of what the PNM propaganda can do. You know what I say? I say Robinson paid the price for the pernicious, the evil, the wicked, and the dangerous, and the septic, as well as the toxic PNM propaganda between, of course, 1986 and 1991 when they called the elections. Here was the difference with then and now. Robinson didn't have a cadre of activists with a high degree of moral and ethical standards. And more significantly, what they say cannot be questioned. And so when after the next elections and they come with the nonsense about Kamala is a wicked this and a wicked that and so on, boy, they have another day in hell with programs like these, the Ground Report, the Corridor Transformation, and the Roberts. I'm sure all of us have committed ourselves to defend what is right and to, of course, dispel and, of course, circle the wagons and protect the gradual but nonetheless inevitable salvation of Trinidad and Tobago, our democracy, and of course, I expect 28 to 29 seats. We are talking about a constitutional majority that will begin the process to make sure that a dastard, a miscreant, a criminal, a rapist, a pedophile like Rowley never again disgrace the office of Prime Minister. That is where we are going. That is where I say that I vary a bit, because we have certain elements that Robinson did not have to protect and justify what he was doing, because he had to do it in order to bring Trinidad and Tobago inevitably, and it did happen, to even keel. And the UNC has shown that it can manage the affairs of the country with very little. You just have to look at Basio Pandey's record. You have to look at Kamla Prasad Bisasa's record. And I want you to know this. When the issue of lower oil and gas prices took front page and center stage, and on the twilight of the Kamla Prasad Bisasa administration around 2014, early 2015, thereabout, she came to the public and she told us that she has asked every ministry to reduce their budget by about 7. She gave a figure. She gave a figure. I can't remember the figure now, but she gave a figure. Except, of course, for that of the Ministry of the People. Yes. Except that ministry, because she knows that that will bring pain, and therefore people must, of course, have something to fall back on, and the state must provide that cushion. Kamla Prasad Bisasa gave it in money. This rapscallion Rowley, faced with a similar situation as he came in, because remember, the reduction started in late 2013 into 2014 and then into 2015, and by September this man was in office, and then therefore it continued in 2016. But he did a similar recognition, but the execution of it was different. He executed it in percentage. He told them that 7%, I believe, of their budget should be reduced, always with some kind of skullduggery, some kind of deception. Why can't you just give a number so people know? But when you say 7%, depending on which ministry got what allocation, 7% will represent different things. But if you say, take 700 million, for example, or 20 million from each ministry, you must find a way to cut. People understand that. Something that is orchestrated, something that is deceptive, something that is macabre, and something that is not just insidious, but always with an evil intent and outcome. Big difference. And that is why we have a duty to continue and to protect the UNC and whatever combination from the onslaught. As I said, what I consider to be, will be dangerous, very dangerous PNM propaganda. You see, inside of all of that, Kamala and they have a responsibility to initiate investigations, criminal and civil. And I could assure you, the first prime minister that will be in blue lights and silver bracelet is Rowley. He's too blatant. He is too overt. He is too callous. And he is, of course, a total rapscallion and to an unlimited degree. Yes, people. I promise, of course, to tell you that his people will be abandoning him. But let's hear just one paragraph, because, of course, it's 12 minutes past 10 already, people. Let me just give you one paragraph of Kojo, Selman Kojo, before, of course, we make our departure. Let me just give you that quickly. Yes, indeed. Let me just give you one paragraph so you see that his former colleagues and friends, they are now erstwhile friends. That is to say, they were former friends, leaving him. And Kevin Kocho says in the first paragraph of course of that article, Keith Rowley and his government will not solve our growing crime problem for the simple reason, that Rowley has become a part of the problem rather than part of the solution. He is much too arrogant, indecisive, ill-disciplined, and uninspirational to lead such a vital national effort. I think that should inspire me to read the next paragraph. I'll just read the next one. First, he says that Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society, but exempt himself from that national condition. If his description is true, we are all infected with that virus. However, Rowley is mistaken in one regard. He feels that only physical violence matters. He does not realize that verbal violence, let me repeat, verbal violence, a product of the same society of which he is a part, is as bad as physical violence and may be the precursor to physical violence. Yes, precursor meaning the forerunner, coming before. Rowley practices verbal violence against the nation each day. Rowley practices verbal violence against, that is with Selwyn Kojo. So that's joke. You could imagine how people vex inside the party, especially those who have been part of the foundation, like over in Padmore, and them wanted to leave something for their grandchildren to, of course, whether automatically or otherwise, whether meritoriously or otherwise. But once they attach or hitch their wagon to the PNM, once it exists, once it is in existence, they are certain that their children could, of course, get an unfair bite of the national pie. But now that the PNM is on the verge of political history, Padmore and them must be quivering in their boots and going, of course, to the graves, very disappointed and very disheartened. Yes, people, of course, we have come to the end. A pleasant good night. Welcome, and I trust, of course, that you would have appreciated, of course, what was disclosed tonight, and that, of course, don't forget tomorrow morning the ground report Andy, Mikey, and myself, of course, Andy is still under sabotage, but of course, he is around. And indeed, we are going to be back here tomorrow night when we will continue, of course, with these and other issues. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Yes, indeed. God bless. Yes, indeed. God bless. Have a wonderful rest of the night. And of course, nobody gave me their opinion about the opening song that was played. But of course, I will end with it as well.
Chucker, Charlie. Don't whine so, girl. Don't whine so. Don't whine so, girl. Don't whine so. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. She whining on the drunk. They say she drink rum. I never see you drink. So how the hell you drunk? I know that you're young. So baby, take it down. Whoa, 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 whoa. And when you cock it up, you're whining like a top, and all them men like that. So baby, not to stop. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't whine so, girl. Don't whine so. Don't whine so, girl. Don't whine so. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. Afraid your bumper spring go break, and that go be real headache. Come my baby.
Don't forget, people, of course, those businessmen who want to advertise on the best and most popular radio station in Trinidad and Tobago, 104.7, not necessarily on the ground report, but any program you could, they will fit your ad in. Contact us. Of course, I'll put up a number tomorrow. Contact us particularly for that service. And of course, you can call Annie. Call Annie, and she will, of course, assist you. Businessmen, if you want your product sold and you want your product reach, of course, the customers that you would take or like or would consume your product or service, give us a call. But of course, in the meantime, you can call the number that is flashing across your screen, and that is, of course, 336-6594. 336-6594. You can call that number right now. Annie is around. But that being as it may, have a wonderful rest of the night, and God bless. Bye-bye.
I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for them politicians. I didn't ever go fuck with my hand. I find some of them, they live it too long. And every 5 years, they be say no song. Some of them, they just shit to lock down. So I can pay for them to be a very wrong. Only my first break by him. Put him down with me. Let me useless politician, only making up long, nothing my heart. I don't care all who vex me, but I'm not ready to believe. She's a strongly determined woman like me. Needs so much chance to run this country. When she in power, I go hungry. And tell him so young, don't get big money. She don't need to not put in my cemetery. I think she is the center of history. I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for them politicians. I didn't ever go fuck with my hand. I find some of them, they live it too long. And every 5 years, they stay for song. Some of them, they just shit to lock down. So I feel for them, they are very wrong. Only my first break by him to join. Put him down with me. Let me useless politician, only making up long, nothing my heart. I don't care who vex me, but I'm not ready to believe. She's a strongly determined woman like me. Needs so much chance to run this country. When she in power, I go hungry. And tell him so young, don't get big money. She don't need to not put in my cemetery. I think she is the center of history.